In Queer Eye, we follow the Fab Five who help a new subject or hero each week by suggesting ways to improve their lives. Anthony on food and wine, Caramel on culture, Jonathan on grooming, and my two guests today, Bobby Berk, the show's design expert, and Tan France, the show's fashion expert. I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby. Guys, one of the ways that this show sets itself apart from the first iteration is it's way more empathetic. There's no judgment. It feels sincere and genuine to me. And that was really important to you both when you started making the show a few years ago, wasn't it? I'll go with you first, Tan. What do you think?
Did you say Tan?
Yeah.
Let's go with Bobby first. I didn't hear the question.
That's problematic.
Just for a second, I'm so sorry. I didn't hear the question.
No.
What do you think? What's the question? What do we think about the difference between the original iteration and ours?
It was important to you that was empathetic and no judgment.
Oh yeah.
It was. You know, we went in not really having a clear direction of what we were doing, except for the fact that we were making Queer Eye. And the only real example we had of that was Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which in its time was the perfect show. When it aired, it's exactly what the world needed. But we also went in knowing that none of us were really the type of people to pick anyone apart. So our very first day of filming, we walked in and we met Tom, and producers were like, all right, go in and find everything wrong with the apartment in Tan, pick apart his clothes and this and that. And we got in and we saw this broken man, and we're all just like, we can't be mean to him. We can't pick him apart. And we just kind of naturally, the five of us started finding everything we could that was positive about him, everything that we knew that we saw that he didn't see about himself. And we instantly saw this man's whole demeanor start to change and starting to stand a little taller. And because we realized that no one had really ever built him up like this in his entire life. And kind of subconsciously, we all were instantly like, this is what we're here for. This is the show we are making. We are here to build people up. And from that moment on, that was what we were there to do.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we ever went in with a grand plan of, oh, this is how we're going to make this so different. I think that all of us, Bobby, I'm going to speak for us all, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is right. I think we all wanted to carve out our own version of our categories, so that we weren't just mimicking what was done before. That would have been just redundant. And so we all wanted to put our own stamp on our category. However, I think we all realized that the main goal for us after episode 1, which is the one that Bobby was referring to, that we really wanted to make an uplifting show. It just wouldn't have been right, especially in this day and age, to tear people apart. There's so much that goes on in the media that is so negative. It's nice to just have a place that's positive and uplifting.
Yeah, it's so nice to have a show like that. There's a few of them out there, but this one in particular teaches us or shows us, demonstrates that empathy is really important. We really need more of it in this world that we're kind of currently stuck in. And I was just wondering, what would you say to people who watch the show and see that you're all really emotionally intelligent and have this warmth that emanates from you all, and you're also all really quite funny? What if people want to know or learn more about how to embrace or other people and empathize with them if they're not really sure how to do it? How do you guys feel that you connect with people?
For me, I use the same process every time. I ask questions. I want to understand who they are before I make any real observation. Don't get me wrong, and Bobby, I'm positive will agree with this. We're not just going in saying, we love everything. Like, there's definitely certain things that like, that needs to go. But we'll tell them we're not doing it behind their back. We'll just say, look, this is probably one of the reasons why you're not feeling like your best self. Maybe get rid of this. But I think when it comes to giving that kind of feedback, we're always very much aware of the fact that this is an emotional process for them. They are very vulnerable. And so we're very careful with the kind of wording we use, but we're careful with the way we treat our heroes.
We just try to approach everything with kindness and love and honesty. And you know what? Honesty isn't always an easy thing to hear, but as long as you approach that honesty with kindness and love, it's a much easier pill to swallow. And I think that's my advice to everyone who was trying to connect is approach it with honesty and kindness, and approach them exactly the way you would want to be approached. When you go at somebody negatively, no one's going to respond to that in a positive way. You wouldn't. So don't approach other people that way either.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's why the show avoids making these heroes the butt of the joke, or it doesn't humiliate them, because you're coming at it from a pretty honest, but also very kind way. And there's nothing wrong with people maybe giving that a go. Try it. Try being kind. It actually is not too bad.
Mhm.
You know, Bobby, over the years, I've become more conscious with how good design is so important to your well-being. Like when I was a much younger guy, I never thought of that. It was just like, I'll just throw that there and that'll do. These days, aesthetically, it makes me feel better, but also practically. What's a really good example of how great design can be transformative, not only in a visual and tactile way, but also functionally?
You know, a lot of people don't think about the way things flow in their home as affecting their energy. You know, the feng shui. People are like, oh, I don't believe in that energy stuff. And there's a certain extent that I believe in it. But when I think of feng shui or the energy and how it affects, I think of that energy as you, as your attitude, as your mentality. You know, when people are talking about the way your room flows, and if your room doesn't flow properly and you're constantly stubbing your toe on an ottoman that you got that was too big, your energy is off because you're annoyed. So, you know, think of it as the way energy flows and not like maybe the universe's energy, but your own. You know, feng shui says don't put pokey plants in your entryway. And people are like, well, that's stupid because it'll, you know, it says that it'll affect your energy negatively. They're like, well, why would it affect your energy negatively? Well, when you come home, and the first thing you do is you poke yourself with a pokey plant, your energy's off. Or when you're leaving in the morning and you poke yourself in the arm with that, your energy's off. So thinking about the way things affect how you operate your day, it really does affect your energy. And keeping your home tidy is a huge thing. People are like, oh, you know what, that's just one thing I just don't have time to do. But if you think about how the fact that those clothes laying all over your floor, you're subconsciously thinking, I need to do that, but I didn't. And you go to bed at night looking at that again going, it's one thing I didn't accomplish today that I wanted to accomplish. And the next morning you wake up and you see those on the floor and you wake up thinking, I'm starting my day off still behind on the things I wanted to do. And after a while, that really wears on your mental health of failure after failure after failure. And even if you don't think of your clothes on the floor as a failure, subconsciously you do. And it builds up and it creates depression. And eventually you just don't want to get out of bed because you don't want to look at that. So keeping your home tidy and organized has a huge, huge effect on your mental health and your ability to start your day out in a positive way.
Oh, it's music to my ears because I'm a OCD neat freak, maybe too much, but I totally understand what you're saying. And then on the other hand, Tan, the old saying is something like clothes maketh the man, right? And it suggests that colour and fit and style can have a profound impact on self-perception and also how others perceive you. And so talk us through that principle and how it guides your role on the show.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent. There's certain things that are said that I think are kind of archaic, and that isn't one of them. I just think the way it's articulated isn't a way that I love, because one person's idea of what is appropriate for somebody to wear is not somebody else's, and it is very culturally specific. And so what I will say is, it doesn't really matter to me if you're wearing a color that I don't love, a print that I think is not great for you. If it makes you feel like the very best version of you, and if it makes you feel like you did all you could to look your very best, that honestly is all I'm concerned about. When we work with our heroes on the show, if somebody really is making such an effort with their clothes, it's not very often I have much to say other than, I think you're doing great. Let me just help you find other stores that you can check out. There's one person in particular that I was referring to, and it's Ari from season, is it 1 or 2? Bobby, do you know? Ari?
I think it ended up being in 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a young Iranian boy. And I had no major comments other than, I like the stuff that you've got, but let me introduce you to some more brands that you may not be aware of. And so as long as somebody is putting an effort into what they're wearing, that's honestly all that matters. If it makes them feel good and they know that they've done all they can to feel their very best, who am I to critique any further?
Yeah, I like that too, because I mean, it's a personal thing, maybe it's a subjective thing, because when I put on a suit, I feel really empowered and I feel kind of slimmer and more attractive. And then if I want to just schlub around the house in my pajamas, then that's a whole different story. And I think it's all, I guess you're right, it's a very subjective thing. I think what this all boils down to, though, when you watch this show, I think it cottoned on to me a while ago. This is about embracing change, and it's also about authenticity, and it's also about self-worth and all those really great things. But to me, it's about embracing change. And a lot of these people that you deal with, it seems to be a really profoundly emotional experience. Tan, did you find that embracing change for some of these heroes was more challenging than others?
Yeah, I think most of us, pretty much every one of us, gets really set in their ways and becomes quite complacent with how they are navigating their lives. And I think that unless you have some major life moment that encourages you or forces you to switch things up, you probably are going to continue to plod along as you have done, unless somebody shows you a way that might make you feel better. And so I think we're all guilty of it, even though I am a very, very tidy person. I'm a bit of a neat freak, but maybe somebody's got a better way. I mean, Marie Kondo had a better way of organizing than I was organizing my own home. And so there's always an option that somebody might have that might be a better way of doing something. And so I think that every one of us is guilty of getting stuck in our ways and being resistant to change. However, if you see that something is a more positive option for you and you deny it, I think that at that point you're causing yourself more harm than good.
Yeah, what do you think, Bobby? Because I mean, you're changing people's surroundings, which a lot of people can be very attached to. And so have you found that sometimes challenging to achieve?
It's been driving me insane.
Oh man, I hate that.
I thought you really had something to say.
I'm just like,
sorry. It was in my face. I'm so
I was
sorry.
like, oh, I'm like, which hero are you wanting to spill the tea on?
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I'm like, I know exactly who you're thinking of, but it has been a challenge sometimes. I'm dealing with their home. It's very, Tan and I, it's very, not that it's not very personal for all five of us, but Tan, it's their clothes that they wear, and it's their home that they're dealing with. It's stuff that affects their life every single day, and stuff that they will keep for a very long time, hopefully. And so it is hard. It is kind of a stressful thing sometimes, because I have to not only worry about going in and just doing a great design, but also doing a great design for somebody that I barely know. So it feels like they're home, because I never want them to walk into the space and be like, oh, this is really great, but who lives here? Because I don't live here. Like, this doesn't feel like me. If I don't hear from them, this feels like my home, then I feel like I haven't done my job. So it can be very hard, especially, we've dealt with some heroes who, I would say, are borderline, clinically a hoarder. And so that's been very difficult, because there are steps that need to happen to deal with that. And we don't necessarily always have enough time to help them as fully as we'd really like to. And so we usually often will find local resources for them to come in afterwards and help. But yes, it can definitely be a challenge. There have been those moments where we do the reveal and it's not always positive, Yeah. Sometimes the reaction is negative. Luckily, within an hour or so of them letting it soak in, they usually come around and they're like, you know what, no, this is great, you're right. But it's happened, it happened this last season, and I have to say, I don't think I reacted well. I was just like, what? And there was some tough love, and in the end, they came around and they're like, you're right. This is what I needed.
Phew. My God, there's so much pressure.
There's so much pressure. I don't think people understand how much pressure there is. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's not just that hero that we have to impress. It's the tens of millions of people who are watching.
Yeah.
And so if that hero appears to be unhappy, that then allows the audience to say, well, maybe there is a problem with this thing that they've done. It's so stressful. I don't think anyone can ever imagine the kind of pressure we're under.
Or the people who are always like, if I see Bobby paint one more wall gray, why doesn't he mix it up? I'm like, you know what? I did not design these homes for you. I designed them for the heroes that live in them. Yeah. And I'm not going to go in and just do some crazy color that they're not going to be comfortable with. Gray is a comfortable choice. Mm-hmm. I know that more than likely they're going to feel at home with a gray color on the wall. So stop thinking, we're designing these homes for you. They're for our hero.
That's not what this show is. Not that. You're not doing it as some sensationalist thing about, wow, look how amazing you've made this place look like this. I wouldn't want to watch that. The other thing that I think
will
really,
mention one point. We
Yeah.
really fought against that when
Yeah.
we were starting to film the show. All of us had meetings with the producers of the show, and I'll be really honest. After like 3 episodes, of the producers were like, "We want you to go bold and wild and think of a bright pink suit." And I was like, "That I'm not your guy. Then I'm definitely not your guy."
So instead, you put me in the pink suit.
Yeah, it's not the kind of show, and thankfully all of us are very strong-willed, especially now after season 1, season 2 came out. We don't back down easy. So if we are not willing to do what somebody wants us to do, we'll say it. And I've gotten very comfortable saying I don't care that it's for TV. They're not going to be happy with that. I'm not willing to do it.
You've always been comfortable saying that, Tanny.
Really good with it. Yeah, really good with it. Yeah.
That's so good. That's how it should be. But you know what? Anybody who hasn't seen the show yet, it's something else that I would really like to demonstrate, and that is, it's not just about the designs and the food and all that stuff. It's actually, to me, sometimes feels like a therapy session, because you have these conversations with these people, and suddenly a simple conversation gets super deep, personal, heartfelt, emotional. Like, a really great example is the first episode from the Japan season. I've forgotten her name.
Her name's
Yoko-san. Like, what a beautiful lady. But she was obviously just under so much stuff, not physically, but just like in terms of her emotional connectivity to people and so forth. You guys were able to really kind of change her life. And I'm just wondering, was it all the gloss of TV, or was there actually some real authentic moments there that you found with her?
I would like to believe that it's never the gloss. That's all I'll say, and then I'll come back to it. But Bobby, it's never the gloss.
I mean, I would completely agree. You know, recently Pastor Noah was interviewed, and the person interviewing him was like, "Oh, you know, how was it real? You know, we saw these emotional moments and, you know, all this stuff, but how was it really?" And Pastor Noah said, "I was so pleasantly surprised when I watched the episode that exactly what happened and the way I felt in the moment translated on the edit of the show. We really, really go out of our way to make sure that the experience that our hero is having is the single most important experience happening on that show. If there is something in audio that was missed, if there was a shot that was missed that was super important, we don't go back. We don't say, oh, hey, by the way, can we redo that conversation again? We need to get it for audio." Because then our hero's like, oh, I'm on a show.
Yeah.
And their walls go back up. So we are really, truly having an authentic, emotional experience with that hero. And our main concern is making sure that they forget they're on a show, and that this really is truly a transformative moment in their lives and not just a TV show.
When I say it's not just the gloss, it couldn't be more real as far as reality TV goes. I like to say that ours is unscripted. Reality TV is reality TV. We are not reality TV, because so much reality TV is so heavily produced.
Yeah.
What we'll do is, I want to give you an example. We call them our field trip days. You know, when I go shopping with them to a retail store, or Bobby goes to a furniture store, if it was just gloss, that shoot would probably take half an hour. They would tell us exactly what needed to be said in an earpiece. We'd say it, we'd get the tears, we move on. I spend 3 hours in my scene. That is cut down to maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes maximum. That shows how much effort we put into making sure that that is the most authentic, real experience for that hero. And as Bobby said, there's no going back, there's no saying, I missed that line, let's pick it up again. Nothing like that. 3 hours of real engaged conversation and interaction to make sure that the show you see is the show you see.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. There are literally no scripts. We don't go into a day with producers like, all right, so we want you to hit this and this and this, and you need to talk about this. It's a real conversation. As we're sitting there learning about the hero, we're thinking about what we're going to say next, just like you would in any other conversation. So I get frustrated sometimes when I see on social media when people are like, oh, it's so touchy, but you know it's fake. And I'm like, it is not. Sometimes I wish it was, because it takes a huge emotional toll on the 5 of us, because it's not just our hero that's opening up their hearts and minds and lives to us. We are to them too. And I don't think there's many shows out there where the host of the show is sometimes getting a makeover ourselves, you know, emotionally. There's been many a times where our heroes have touched our lives just as much as we've touched theirs.
That's so nice to hear. And speaking of hosts, let's talk about the Emmys briefly before we let you go, because Queer Eye wins lots of Emmys. You won 2 years in a row for Best Structured Reality Program. Hey, Emmy voters, there's a host category too. Let's see if we can get the hosts on there on the Fab Five, but that's a whole other story. Talk us through very briefly about the Emmys and how exciting it was to win those 2 Emmys 2 years in a row. You may win again.
Go ahead, Kim.
Gosh, I still struggle for the words, and it's been 2 years, I think, since we won, almost 2 years since we won our first one. So I will say this. Yes, we won for Best Structured Programming. However, there are so many other categories that win that we're not necessarily a part of. For example, casting department at ITV. I think,
editing.
Director once.
Yeah, Hasham won for director. Editing, our editing team, who is amazing. Cinematography, my art director, who is in charge of executing all of my designs, he was nominated. So yeah, not only have we been nominated for Best Show, but we've been so lucky that all the people besides us who make the show the best show, they've been recognized as well, which couldn't mean more to us.
But we are really honoured that we're nominated in the host category again this year. We're not traditional hosts, and I understand that, which is why I think...
Wait a minute, we're nominated in the host category?
Oh, sorry. We were. Sorry. No. No. I do nothing.
We weren't.
Oh, we weren't? Oh, okay. Well, we were last
we weren't.
year. Oh, we were. Oh, sorry. We thought we might, but we didn't get nominated.
Yeah, how could you?
You're on the ballot.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. We pushed for it. But I think it's because people don't see us as traditional hosts. However, what we do, the 5 of us, we are steering a show. We are navigating the way a show gets executed. And I think if that's not a host, I don't know what is.
Yeah. I think that people feel like when they vote for Queer Eye as Best Unstructured Reality Show, they're voting for us. And they are. Yeah. But the 5 of us don't take an Emmy home that day. You know, our amazing producers who make the show what it is, they do. Which we couldn't be happier about. But yeah, there's that host category that we love.
Love it. And I want to see you guys in there because, I mean, sometimes I'm watching what's happening to you guys as opposed to the heroes. It's because you're actually a real part of the narrative of each episode. But anyway, that's a whole other department. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's been really insightful, and good luck for this coming season that's just dropped on Netflix. Really looking forward to it.
Tanny, I have to say, you always are like, I always do my interviews here because the lighting's so good. I've been on interviews with you now in the morning and the afternoon. It's not the lighting, it's just your face.
You are very kind. I'll take that, Bobby. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I love you.